Hello, Daddy, and welcome to our channel. My name is Ryan. Sam's not here, it's just me today. Sam and I are in a very transient time in our lives, and as a consequence, we wanted to experiment with some new types of content. So content that's either just me or just her when we want to talk about something really passionate or important, something a little bit more like commentary, essay style. I am an actor. I am in the Actors Equity Association, which is a union that represents theater actors. I am also in SAG-AFTRA, which is the union that represents film and television actors. I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about the Hollywood strikes. Both writers and actors are on strike right now with the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA union. So I wanted to jump on here and talk about that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the truth about the strike. So yeah, Sam and I love to talk about entertainment on this channel because we both work in the entertainment industry and we love to bring you personal experience about what's going on in the world. So what is going on with this strike? As I'm sure you've heard, the writers in Hollywood have been on strike since May 2nd of this year. For those of you who don't know, entertainers, people in entertainment, they have unions. The Writers Guild represents the writers. There's a Producers Guild, there's a Directors Guild, SAG-AFTRA represents film and television actors, AEA covers theater actors. And the reason that these unions are important is because the unions can negotiate for basic terms in contracts. So union contracts have these basic terms. If I'm doing a TV show or a movie or guest starring on something, there are certain minimums that they have to pay me. There are certain health benefits that they have to accrue for me. They have to contribute to my pension, things like that. So that when I get a job, I can't get screwed over, and there are basic things that I can always expect when I am employed. So obviously, that's a good thing. Our unions, no matter which unions we're talking about, they go to the table with producers, with studios, whatever, and they negotiate the terms of these contracts. If they come to an agreement, the contract has a term, and when that term expires, the unions go back to the table and negotiate with these people again. These negotiations obviously can get ugly when the unions want something, and when the people that the unions are representing want something, and the people with the money don't want to give it to them. TLDR, we always want more money, and the people with a lot of money don't want to give any money to us. And this is just a scientific fact. According to science, let me just pull up this fact. According to science, rich people suck. So when these negotiations happen and the unions go to the table with the studio heads, with the networks, with producers, whatever, they usually know that it could get ugly, especially if they're asking for something really important. And so one tactic to have some power in negotiations is called a strike authorization. So here's from Collider. This is what a strike authorization is. Ahead of negotiations, SAG-AFTRA and also the Writers Guild leadership called for a strike authorization vote. A strike authorization, if approved by a majority vote of all members, gives the negotiating team the power to call for a strike if they feel that that's the best way to get a fair deal. So on June 3rd of this year, voting members of SAG-AFTRA, the people in the union who actually voted 97.6 in favor, not of a strike, but of a strike authorization, which means we say you can go to the table and say, give us this or we'll go on strike, hoping that that will be a bargaining chip in negotiations so that the people in power at the top with all the money say, okay, we don't want them to go on strike because we don't want to shut down Hollywood, so we will make certain concessions. So the Writers Guild went into their negotiation saying, we will strike if you don't give us this. Our acting guild went in saying, if you don't give us this, we will go on strike. And unfortunately, the studios, the networks, the people at the top who we're negotiating with kind of said, go fish. So on May 2nd, the writers officially started striking. And on July 14th, SAG-AFTRA also went on strike with their own demands and in solidarity with the writers. So for the first time in Hollywood since 1960, the writers and the actors are striking at the same time. To give you a sense of what was going on in 1960, Ronald Reagan was not the president of the United States. He was the president of the Actors Union, SAG, and was leading the strike with the writers. So that's how long it's been since the writers and the actors had a joint strike. I'm in SAG-AFTRA. That's the union that I'm in, the Actors Union. I've been in that union since 2013. I'm going to mostly talk about that, but just so you get a sense of what the writers are doing and what kind of triggered this whole thing. When the writers' strike started on May 2nd, the big issue that they were going after was AI and streaming. So AI having certain contractual concessions in place saying that you won't replace us with robots who are writing these scripts. And then streaming, increased pay, residuals, and staffing requirements. So the writers want to make more money when they write for a show that's streaming. They want residuals, which is actually very customary. I've been on episodes of The Middle, episodes of Liv and Maddie, episodes of Last Man Standing, The Winchesters, all of these things that are either syndicated or on cable television or on network television, and I still get paychecks for residual income. That residual income is owed to me because they used my likeness when they played the episode. No matter how many times they played the episode, they owe me money. It's a small amount of money usually. Like sometimes I get a check for like a couple of dollars. But depending on how it's tiered out, depending on how it's structured, those residuals can really add up. For streaming services, writers don't get any residuals. For streaming services, actors tend not to get any residuals. And this is crazy. Residual income is basically saying, we're going to pay you for your likeness when people watch this. On network TV, if they're playing reruns once a month, then your face is being used once a month. You should get owed for that. Think about streamers, Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, the amount of people who watch things over and over and over and over again. And the people that wrote that material, the people that act in that material, the intellectual property that is being consumed on a regular basis is not being paid out as compensation to the people working on these projects. That's a problem. And there's some intersection here with SAG-AFTRA. So let's talk about what's being demanded and asked of here, focusing on the SAG-AFTRA, the acting side of this. I want to give you an example. Streaming is a big deal, okay? I have a friend, I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to say what it is, but I have a friend who is a major player in one of the most popular Netflix shows of its time. They were a lead in one of the most consumed television programs of this time, and they were not making enough money to pay their rent. If you are on one of the top watched television shows, that's like the NFL of TV. Why is a quarterback making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and someone who is being seen more often on a Netflix show than on Sunday Night Football, not making enough to pay rent in their apartment? Again, I don't think anyone is saying we should make $24.4 million every time we're on a TV show. No one is saying that. But I think that if you're on a television show that literally everyone is watching, you deserve to have enough money to, I don't know, pay rent, buy groceries, get health insurance, have dignity of life. And this residual income issue is a big deal for actors as well. And I can give you an example. When I was on Disney Channel, I was contracted by the production company that produced the show, not by Disney Channel. So those big contracts that Disney Channel stars are under, I wasn't under one of those. I was under a production contract, not a network contract. The channel would cut a deal with their lead actors to pay them a little bit more money up front, but cut them out of residuals. So the lead actors of Liv and Maddie would make significantly more than me for their weekly rate when we would shoot the episodes. But to this day, because I didn't have to cut that kind of deal, I still make residuals for when people watch Liv and Maddie on Disney Channel, those network residuals. The whole leads of the whole show are not seeing that money. So the actors are really going to the table and saying, listen, what's fair is fair. If you see my face, you should pay me. If I'm doing something that is really popular, that a lot of people are watching, I should get paid enough to be able to pay my rent. Again, we talked about this in a video last week. I think there's this notion that like all of these actors are just like these spoiled Hollywood actors who are just like, I only have $5 million and I want 10. No, it's like, I have a very affordable apartment in a very affordable part of town, and I can't even pay for that because you are hoarding so much money when you are making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars off of the subscribers that are watching the content that I helped you create, and you're not cutting me in even just a sliver of enough to be able to have dignity of occupation and dignity of income, on top of the fact that there are structural issues like this Liv and Maddie residual issue that I just told you about. There are structural issues that just haven't been changed that need to change. There is no reason why, if your face is on television, at the peak of Liv and Maddie, it was playing in 90 million homes. There's no reason why, if your face is on 90 million homes, you shouldn't be getting paid pennies on the dollar for the fact that your likeness is being used. It's archaic. It's an archaic way of thinking, and it just needs to change. People should be compensated for when their likeness is being used. And again, for these streaming shows, actors, writers, we never see residuals. That is a problem. We talked about this on a previous video too. AI has some implications for actors as well. The studios want to negotiate a one-time payment for someone to come in, have themselves scanned so that AI can replicate their image, their likeness, and put it into movies infinitely without ever paying them again. So I'm not saying these are the actual numbers, but you come in for one day, we pay you $500, we scan your likeness, and we can use your likeness whenever we want, wherever we want, however often we want, and we will never pay you again. That's not fair. We are not asking for the stars and the moon. We are asking for very basic things in terms of if you use my likeness, you pay me for it. You don't pay me a lot, you just pay me something. That is what we're negotiating for, and the heads of the industry are digging their heels in because they're being selfish, and that's why everyone is on strike right now. There are a couple of other things that you might not know. For example, to join SAG-AFTRA, you have to be eligible to join SAG-AFTRA, which means you have to have worked enough to be eligible to join the union. So you have to get jobs in order to be in the union that allows you to work the jobs. Once you are eligible to get in the union, you have to pay a $3,000 initiation fee and pay $1,000 dues every year. So that is what I have to pay just to be in the union that is going to the table negotiating these deals, not to mention the fact that health insurance is a paywall threshold that 80% of SAG-AFTRA members don't even reach. All of that is to say, you're paying $3,000 at an initiation fee plus $1,000 every year to stay in the union, and 80% of the people who are paying all of that money don't even qualify for health insurance because the bar is so high. That initiation fee is ridiculous. Those dues might be a little too high. And the threshold for health insurance, how hard it is to get insurance, even if you're in the union, is also a problem. So there are a lot of issues that we are fighting for, and almost all of them come down to just dignity of living. So those are some fast facts about the writer strike, the actor strike, all of these strikes that are going on. I've gotten a bunch of questions in my DMs about the strike because I've been talking about it on Instagram a little bit, so I'm just going to answer a few of these questions. Something that I hear a lot, do I support the strike? The short answer is yes, I absolutely support the strike because I think both for the writers and for the actors, for the most part, all of the things that I've outlined, we are asking for very fair things and we deserve to get them. Some people on kind of the fringes of the SAG-AFTRA strike are asking to be paid for every single audition they go on. I think that's kind of ridiculous. There used to be a rule where if you get called back like 6 or 7 times, eventually once you get called back enough, they have to start paying you for your time. I think that's totally fair. But if I get paid every time I audition for something, I'm never going to get paid because what's actually going to happen is the casting directors and the producers are going to be like, okay, we don't want to pay everyone, so we'll only audition the same 10 people all the time, and we'll just only pick from them. So the idea of getting paid for every audition, I think actually hurts actors a heck of a lot more than it helps them, especially considering what they're asking for is like $30 per tape. And I'm like, that's not going to make that much of a difference in your life, especially considering how much negative ramifications that could have. And then, of course, we have the industry heads on the other side of this who are saying, we're just going to dig our heels in. We're not going to pay them anything. One person is quoted saying, we're just going to wait until they lose their houses and apartments and then come crying back and offer them a worse deal. So I think everyone is digging their heels in a couple places that people just need to relax. Industry heads, you have all the money in the world. Give us some money. Actors, you don't have to get paid for every single audition. Let's chill on that and just take the opportunities that we're given. You can't be selfish. You can't try to claw onto something that was never yours in the first place. I support the broad concepts of the strike that are about dignity of life. I don't support some of the crazier things that I personally think on all levels, actors, writers, producers, everyone, I think on all levels, people are just being a little bit selfish. People have asked me, what do I think is going to happen? I definitely think this is going to be a long and ugly battle. Unfortunately, I'm not saying this is right. I'm just saying I think that this is true. I think that actors have more power than writers because they're so much more visible. So I think that SAG-AFTRA is going to come to an agreement before the writers do. And I think that that agreement might be a little sweeter for the actors than it ends up being for the writers. But eventually, everyone is going to have to sit down and work this out. Otherwise, the entertainment industry will collapse. It's not going to come to that. I think everyone's just kind of like flexing their muscles right now and saying, look how long we can strike. Look how long we can hold out. We don't need you. Yeah, well, we don't need you. And eventually that's going to end. It's just pride and it's stupid. And I wish that everyone could just sit down in a room and negotiate right now under the premise of, okay, we know that this is going to end eventually. So let's just pretend that we all did this pissing contest and we all felt really cool about ourselves. Let's pretend we already did that. Now we're here in the room. What are we going to do about this? It takes maturity. It takes urgency. It's going to happen, but it might be a while. And finally, another question that I get a lot is like, what are the broader implications of this strike that could affect other parts of the industry? That strike authorization that we talked about, IATSE, which is a union that represents like stagehands and grips and people like that, they did a strike authorization too. On July 20th, they reached a tentative agreement, so it doesn't look like they're going to strike, but they were willing to strike if their negotiations negotiations didn't go the way that they wanted it to. So we're seeing a lot of tension bubbling up in entertainment. There's another union. I'm not going to share this information publicly because I don't know if it's mine to share, but there's another entertainment union that covers an entirely separate class of entertainers that is also in conversations about a strike authorization right now. So I know for a fact that many unions are in turmoil because people who are working in entertainment don't have dignity of life and quality of life that they deserve if they're working. Honestly, I hope that a broader implication of the writers and the screen actors going on strike is that other unions do this. They look inwards and they say, are we getting treated fairly? We talked about IATSE, but there are so many different unions. The Writers Guild, SAG-AFTRA, Actors Equity, which is theater, the American Guild of Variety Artists, which is like theme parks and circuses, the American Guild of Musical Artists, which is obviously musicians, opera singers, whatever. There are unions for musicians in the orchestras and in the pits of all of the various Broadway shows that we know and love. So there are lots of unions that represent lots of people, and those people deserve to be fairly compensated for their work. I hope, especially as an actor on stage, that Actors Equity looks inward and says, maybe we ought to go on strike, because frankly, I've worked on SAG-AFTRA contracts. Is it perfect? No, but it's pretty darn good. I've worked on AGVA contracts. Is it perfect? No, but it's okay. I've worked on AGMA contracts. Is it perfect? No, but it's pretty darn good. I've worked on equity contracts, and they are garbage. Theater actors are treated so unfairly. I would love to see them go on strike and ask for dignity of work, because I think 8 shows a week is ridiculous. I think it's absolutely ludicrous that you can be on Broadway, which is the height of theater, and not be making more than a low-level accountant would make at a CPA firm. I think that it's ridiculous that the way that our bodies, minds, and talents are treated is as if we are utterly and completely replaceable when all of us are at the very top of our craft. So the broader implication for me that I would love is if Actors Equity would look inward and if they would go on strike too. But I can also acknowledge that I tend to kind of be the person who's like, burn everything down, anarchy, let's start over and rebuild from the beginning, a revolution of the arts. And maybe that's unrealistic. Anyway, I know that I really got into the weeds on this video, but I hope those of you who are curious about the writer's strike, the actor's strike, and sort of the subsequent implications of all of these things found this to be interesting information. I am currently on strike, so please share this video, let people know what's going on, support actors. Again, we're not talking about Leonardo DiCaprio and Meryl Streep here. We're talking about normal people like me who just want to be able to pay rent and get health insurance. So the best way that you can support me, my fellow actors, and the writers out on the picket lines right now is by sharing this information and getting the word out that this is actually a really important moment in time for this industry. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, Daddy.